So how can we use matching, pacing, leading in the clinic? We often want people to come down into get them out of that fight or flight and get them down into the parasympathetic or rest and digest state, because that's where we're going to get the best results when we can do that for our clients. Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist podcast, designed for health and wellness practitioners interested in fascia science. I'm Amy Mayer, occupational therapist, practice owner, author, and educator with more than 30 years of experience using fascia techniques across many settings. Each episode brings practical insights and thought-provoking conversations to help you expand your skills and better serve your clients. Let's get started. Hi, this is Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. And today we're going to talk about a concept called matching, pacing, leading. And this is a concept that I used to teach in my management classes when I taught at Creighton. And much of the time when I was teaching with Creighton, I was also managing several departments at the hospital. And I use this concept a lot. And you can use this concept to de-escalate someone, to calm them down a little bit. And you can use this strategy to ramp them up a little bit. And, what does this have to do with being a fascia-informed therapist? Well, it's a strategy that you can use in the clinic as well. And if fascia is a sensory organ of the whole person, then the first intervention is how we show up with the client and how we help them shift gears into the gear that we need them to be in order to get the most effective treatment to them and the best possible results. So the matching, pacing, leading, if you haven't heard of it, is typically used, and I taught it in the management class in the context of conflict management. And I had an amazing department of occupational therapists and OTAs when I worked at the hospital here in Omaha. And I really didn't have to use it a lot in terms of de-escalation. But I had this one gal that worked in the department that just always seemed to push my buttons, and I would have to use this a lot with her. In the management class, the example that I frequently shared was early in my time at the hospital, and when I was hired to lead this department because the occupational therapy department had 3.5 FTEs, while the physical therapy department had more like 16, 17 FTEs. And the OT department really hadn't had a lot of attention and support from an individual manager. And I was being brought in to do that. And I was chosen for that job because in my previous role in Northeast Iowa, I had built an OT department from scratch and grew it into several FTEs, and it was really successful. So that is why I got chosen, and so I had a pretty good idea of how to grow a department. And anyway, it was 4, 5, 6 months into my time there, and this therapist came into my office. Pretty small office, and I had a chair, a desk, and then 2 chairs that people could sit in to talk to me. And that's about all the space I had. And this therapist comes in, and she doesn't knock, she doesn't announce herself. She just comes in, and she puts both hands. I'm sitting at my desk. She puts both hands on the desk, leans forward, and puts her finger up. Not right in my face, but darn close, and says, "You're not doing enough to grow this department and build this department. You should be out talking to physicians. That's your job, not our job. And why aren't you doing it?" Well, of course, this person had really no idea what was going on behind the scenes that I was working on, but decided she wasn't seeing enough happening and thought that she could jumpstart me, I guess. Anyway, so the concept of matching, pacing, leading. The matching part is exactly what it sounds like. It's matching the energy of the person that you're trying to make a shift in. So what I immediately did was, and it was slow, but I stood up, I put my hands on the desk and leaned in a little bit to her and said, okay, I see you're upset. And I matched her volume and I matched her tone. And that right there shows that person that, okay, I'm engaged with you. I'm matching your energy. I can see you're serious. I'm engaged with you. Then you start to pace. You change the pace. And to change the pace, what I do then is I take my hands off the desk. I stand up straight. I lower my voice just a little bit. I maybe even take a small step backwards, or maybe just it's 1 foot backwards. So I'm changing the pace here. And hopefully she does the same. It's a very subconscious process. And so if you acknowledge first, but then you start to shift with the pace, they will often shift along with you. And then if she starts pacing, following my pace, then now I'm leading. So what can I do next? I can take another step back. I can pull my chair and sit down up to me and sit down, and I can make a gesture for her to also sit down. I can keep my hands down in my lap. I can continue to lower my voice and lower my tone. And you also using your verbal strategies of, okay, I see you're upset. I want to hear you out. What's going on? So that is a strategy that works great to bring things down, but you can also use it for speaking, leading a meeting, or even on a one-on-one meeting or a bigger meeting to bring the energy up as well. So how can we use matching, pacing, leading in the clinic? We often want people to come down into get them out of that fight or flight and get them down into the parasympathetic or rest and digest state, because that's where we're going to get the best results when we can do that for our clients. And I've talked about this before, that I don't tend to make people do or behave a certain way when they're in a session with me. If they're on the table and I'm using my techniques on them, I'm not telling them they have to be quiet. If they want to talk, they can talk. But at the same time, if they're talking and they're loud and they're fast paced, I want to bring that down. And I'm going to try, first of all, to bring that down through matching, pacing, leading. I might, oh yeah, that is cool. I'm so glad that happened last weekend. That must have been really fun. And then I might slow it down and maybe ask them some other questions about it, but I'm going to ask it in a very lower toned, slow paced way of talking. And then hopefully they start to match me. And then I can start leading, maybe with some questions and talking about a different topic that might sort of calm their body down. We all know those people that sort of storm into your office and they're just big, loud, exciting people, and bringing them down using a strategy like that. Because I have people who will walk in and they'll come in the door, they'll close the door, and they'll stand there and they're talking to me, and I'm like, okay, this is where we're at today. So I will immediately sit down. That's the first thing I do. I pull up my little round rolly stool and I sit down, I put my hands in my lap, and I'm quiet and I just listen to them. And pretty soon when they sort of figure out they're the only person standing, then they'll sit down too. And it does work. And I would guess there's a lot of you out there doing this in a very natural, spontaneous way, because we typically, a lot of us who go into the therapies, we're empathetic people. We're compassionate, we're empathetic, and we absorb the energy in the room, and we should take that. That's fine. But how can we use that to even better help our clients? Other ways that we can help them bring that energy to where we need it to provide the most effective intervention is things like our breath. Oftentimes we're so close to our client, they can probably hear our breath, and taking long, slow breaths, people will often start to match that. We can also do it through our touch. We can do it through music. We can do it through, how we set up the space in general. So think about the next time you have a client come into your office or your room, however you're set up. Take a few minutes to notice the client's pace. And can you match it, even for just a little bit of time? Because I talked about the person who comes in loud, but there's also people who come in very soft and very quiet, and we can match them too. And sometimes I have people who typically come in very loud, but then they come in very soft, and I immediately notice, okay, something's going on here. So I'm going to match that and approach them differently. And maybe in that particular case, taking a little more time in the pacing process, and maybe you don't even need to pace at all. To me, that's a time when I know I have to really extra turn on my listening skills and check in with them. And then maybe we can start to make a shift towards, okay, what are we going to do today? What's going to help you best? So take the time to really think about, and maybe don't even try anything in the next several sessions, just maybe a noticing of what you're already doing. And you might find out that, hey, I'm doing this matching, pacing, leading thing without even thinking about it. But once you know and you're aware of your own practices, then maybe you can even add on to that and upgrade your skills a little bit and be even more intentional about it. So I hope that idea was helpful in some way to you, and you can observe yourself, and maybe if you're not using these, maybe you've got a new skill to try. All right, I hope everybody has a great day. You've been listening to the Fascia-Informed Therapist podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. And if you'd like to go deeper, check out my continuing education courses, both online and in person. You can find them at fasciainformed.com. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to next time.